you and your company have been at the centre of a very high-profile one at the moment with Candace Owens, who's now left Daily Wire. Was she fired, or did she leave of her own volition?
I'm not going to speak to this topic here.
At all?
Now, let me say something. If there's a legal reason, then just say legally, I cannot speak to them.
She's free to do whatever she wants to do, to be wherever she wants to be. And the difference between a publisher like the Daily Wire and a platform like Locals is obviously that a platform should have a very broad range of speech that it allows, including speech that maybe even the creators don't believe is inside what they would consider to be the Overton window.
Christians have welcomed me with open arms, except this Christ the King anti-Semitic crowd.
Is saying Christ is King, specifically to non-believers, specifically to Jewish people, problematic? Well, I know this may shock some of you, especially those of you who maybe haven't been active on social media, but according to some, including certain people that I otherwise agree with on a lot, the answer actually is yes. And you're probably wondering how that all happened, how we got here to a place where people are being accused of anti-Semitism for saying Christ is King, but let's unpack it all.
What we can deduce, I think, from what has been publicly displayed from both hosts of the Daily Wire, namely Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens, and it's specifically really about Israel. Yes, the Israel-Hamas war, but it goes back even further than that. To her relationship with Kanye West, but then Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, and the position that she has taken on that, a lot of people deem controversial, including Ben Shapiro. She tweeted on November 3rd, so this is about a month after the original Hamas attack on Israel. She tweeted, "No government anywhere has a right to commit genocide ever. There is no justification for a genocide. I can't believe this even needs to be said or is even considered the least bit controversial to state." In a video that was circulating at a private event that followed these statements about Israel, Ben Shapiro called Candace Owens' response to the conflict and her behavior, quote, absolutely disgraceful. So as that video was circulating, again, this was in November, she tweeted on November 14th, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake." She says, "No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money." She follows up to that, says, "Christ is King." Ben Shapiro fired back with a response. Again, this was November 15th that he tweeted this, saying, "Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means, quit."
Hey everyone, this is RockTheStageandSky.com, and we gotta talk about this because it's sad to see all the stuff that's happened between Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro, and I say that as someone who saw them from humble beginnings, right? I was around and I was aware of Ben Shapiro way back in 2016 when he was going to college campuses, when he was appearing on Fox News, and he was just, this guy was, facts don't care about your feelings.
Caitlyn Jenner, I'll call him Caitlyn Jenner.
No, it's her. You're not being polite to the pronouns.
Because
disrespectful.
Okay, forget about the disrespect. Facts don't care about your feelings.
I'm saying that the Boy Scouts have a standard. You must be a biological boy to be a Boy Scout. You have to be a boy to be a Boy Scout. In the name Boy Scouts.
How can you argue that racism is not a driving factor in income inequality?
Because it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And when you have a culture that doesn't... You know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one to me. Explain to me why black kids are shooting each other in rates significantly higher than whites are shooting each other. Explain to me why 13% of the population is responsible for 50% of the murder. Explain to me why the number of black kids in prison, not for innocent reasons, not for walking down the street and getting pulled into a prison, is so high. Explain, if it has nothing to do with culture, explain to me why the single motherhood rate in the black community jumped from 20% to 70% in the same course of time that the civil rights movement has made such tremendous strides. Is America more racist now than it was in 1960? And if it is, please explain to me how that happened.
And he was getting booed at, and people tried to cancel him. And I saw the rise of him and Milo Yiannopoulos around the same time, and Steven Crowder, they were coming up. And so And I was so proud of Ben Shapiro all this time. You know, he built the Daily Wire with Jeremy Boring, butchered that name. So I was happy, you know. I got friends in real life, not on the internet. Friends in real life who know about the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro. For those who don't know, Candace Owens, you guys have seen this face. She rose in prominence mainly because Kanye West, when Trump was in office, Kanye West said that I like the way she thinks, or something along those lines. And people were getting mad because Candace Owens she's part of the conservative movement. Why is Kanye West doing this? And then that's when Kanye West basically said, okay, you know what? Fine, I'm going full blown. And then he got on Trump's bandwagon, you know, and then people started to hate Kanye West and said, oh, there's something wrong with him. Candace Owens was recently released from the Daily Wire. The prevailing theory as to why she was released is because Candace expressed that Christ is king. And some people think that's anti-Semitic. We gotta talk about it, all right? First off, I wanna make it clear that you're reading the words of a committed Christian. I'm just telling you right off the bat that I do have biasness. That being said, I am going to point out a thing called backhanded statements, all right? So stay tuned for that. Secondly, I have a great deal of respect for the Jewish people. All right, the Bible was written by Jews, some of my greatest heroes. Honestly, when you read the Bible every night and you're reading about the examples that was passed down from the Bible, they're all Jewish. Most of them are Jewish people. You know, my heroes are David, Jeremiah, Jephthah, Hannah, Elijah. All Jewish are Hebrew descent. All right, Jesus Christ came from the Jewish line of David, okay? On October 7th, when the Hamas attacked the Jewish people at that music festival, I was up in arms about that. I was like, that's messed up. I wrote a passionate essay calling out those who are harassing and persecuting Jews here in America after all that went down. So if you want to call me anti-Semitic for what I'm about to say, all power to you. All I can say is that my credentials is there. You can go to stageandscott.com and I can back up what I'm saying, okay? I'm pointing all this out because cutting to the chase, I'm just going to put out here, just going to say it. Claiming that someone is anti-Semitic simply because they declare Christ as king is a trumped-up charge that's one step away from trying to get the person canceled. You're using the word anti-Semitic to get the person canceled. This is surprising coming from Ben Shapiro. Again, from the Daily Wire camp of all places. Ben Shapiro made his metaphorical bones by going to college campuses and saying things that went against the mainstream narrative while people were trying to get him canceled.
So your view is this is political correctness run amok?
Yeah, I mean, it's the furthest extension of political correctness. And when you say something that it's not just me disagreeing with you, it is me destroying your identity as a human being in a way that is akin to violence.
There was always some massive protest where hundreds, if not thousands, of students rose up to boycott his speeches when they came to his campus. So he had to hire security and paid his own, you know, so it's shocking to see this all go down. So to hear that this guy, Ben Shapiro, and his cohorts imply that Candace Owens is promoting anti-Semitism, which is really just, again, a veiled attempt to try to get him or get her canceled, which is, to me, hypocritical. Now, all that said, let's talk about Candace Owens and her remarks, the Christ is king, okay? Because let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, there is a thing called backhanded statements. I call them esoteric remarks. A backhanded remark is something that may seem pleasant, but really is a bit of criticism. It's a passive aggressive statement made toward the person that you're really beefing with. Everyone else, this is just an innocuous statement. They didn't do anything, what's wrong with it? But to the person you're conflicting with, that you're like grinding up against, that is a backhanded remark, you know. And I mean, come on, let's not act like we as Christians don't do this all the time. When we disagree with someone and you spit out a Bible verse to everyone else, thinks, oh, that's a lovely verse, but really you're using that scripture to attack someone that you disagree with. I just watched Jason Whitlock's show, I have the link down below, where Virgil Walker and Pastor Anthony, they talked about how there's nothing wrong with Candace Owens or anyone declaring that Christ is king. And I think there's something missing from their discussion, because I didn't hear what I just mentioned, the backhanded remarks, all right? Declaring Christ is king may not be anti-Semitic, but it is definitely an attack. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10 through 20 talks about putting on the armor of God, the sword and shield of truth and faith. He's describing in those scriptures arming yourself as a soldier, not physically to cut down or to physically attack people, but to cut through Satan's schemes, all right? So when you say Christ is king, it is an attack. Let's call it what it is. Oh, we didn't mean anything by it. Yeah, you did. So when you tell an atheist, a Muslim, or a Jewish person who does not believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, the Messiah, if you tell that person that Christ is king, best believe you are attacking. You are cutting through Satan's lies. And I'm all for it if done with love and wisdom. That part is important. If it's done with love and wisdom, right? If it's done out of spite, if it's done out of malice, if it's done out of, I really want to hurt you, I'm not trying to save you, I'm trying to hurt you, I'm not sure that's the best tactic. I can't condone that, okay? This is important because Christians can come off sounding disingenuous and straight up obnoxious. I don't know Candace's motives here. I can speculate. There's a lot of implications, sure, absolutely. But I can't say whether or not that when she said Christ is king, she did that out of some passionate move to declare her love for Christ, or whether it was done to stick it to a non-believing Jewish person like Ben Shapiro. But even if she is using that to just stick it to Ben Shapiro, would that really be anti-Semitic? Like, why are they calling this anti-Semitic? Why are they using this trumped up charge to try to get her canceled? To break that down, we have to talk about a guy named Nick Fuentes, all right? And it's kind of sad, actually, because if not for the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro's feelings and their trumped-up accusations of calling Candace Owens anti-Semitic, I doubt that we'd ever even need to know Nick Fuentes' name.
This is not someone I have probably ever talked about on the show before, but there's really no way around talking about him when it comes to this subject. Nick Fuentes is an American radical far-right political commentator who has become well known for his anti-Semitic, racist, and Holocaust-denying statements. We also have a video of him kind of telling his views of what is wrong with quote-unquote Jewish power in the United States, and then again using this Christ is King chant.
Is getting out that we got to get rid of Jewish power in America. Well, we are here to say that America is not a Jewish nation. America is a Christian nation.
Again, I didn't know anything about Nick Fuentes, but because you're accusing her, now I have to find out. So you hear that's Nick Fuentes on stage, and you hear the audience who sound like men. I won't. You can deduce what kind of race they are, but they're saying Christ is king. Christ is king. Okay. All right. Let's talk about it. First off, America is not a Christian nation, all right? If it was, the divorce rate wouldn't be what it is, children would be born out of wedlock, the education system wouldn't be what it is, and there would be no need for a person like Trump to be elected in 2016. Trump being elected in 2016 was a response to the social justice movement calling and trying to destroy everything that was traditional and conservative and Christian, all right? That's why Trump was elected in 2016, in case you haven't figured it out yet. America may have been founded on Christian principles. I'm not saying that it wasn't, all right? The founding father, John Adams, said in a 1798 letter to the Massachusetts militia that our Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Let me repeat that. Our Constitution, the American Constitution, it only works for a moral and religious people. It's inadequate to the government of any other kind. That's what he wrote. If you look at the decadence and just the decay of morality in our country and how things are going, let me continue. Secondly, with Fuentes' audience chanting, Christ is king, I can see how that could come off sounding anti-Semitic. Only because Fuentes' speech itself was anti-Semitic. Christ is king, that phrase by itself is not anti-Semitic. But because they're using it and his speech is anti-Semitic, I can see how people can connect it to and say, oh, they're one and the same. It's like what Americans think when they hear, oh, Allah Akbar, right? When you hear that, it's understandable to hear that and think that that's an anti-American phrase, but it really means God is the greatest to Muslims, all right? And it's just sad and unfortunate that the worst of us have ruined phrases and hijacked symbols like the rainbow, and that were meant for good, right? But it does sound like when it comes to even that, like even if Nick Fuentes and his people are saying Christ is king and they're supposed to be white supremacists, it looks like Christians, like mainstream Christians and lukewarm Christians and all the Christians who are commenting on these videos, they're not about to give up that fight just yet. They're not about to say, okay, we won't say Christ is king. No, they're saying no. Listen, I'm sorry that these groups over here, this white supremacist group, they're saying Christ is king and it sounds awful the way they're using it. I'm sorry about that, but Christ is king. You know, as a Christian, Christ is king. You know, like you're not, because I mean, there's so many scriptures that tell us that, hey, if you're ashamed of me, I'll be ashamed of you when I return in all my glory. That's what Jesus Christ said in Luke. I have the scriptures up right here. You know, Jesus Christ said that the greatest commandment is love your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. God should come first, above government. There is a scripture in Romans that say that we should respect the authority of government, but not when it comes to God. You know, like when the government starts to impede on our religious freedom, that's when we as Christians rise up and be like, no, God comes first. Because honestly, it is a slippery slope, right? Because it starts with this, and we all know this. I mean, if you guys have been alive and been paying attention to the world the past 10 years, that's how it starts, all right? Just like, honestly, I mean, because I don't want to get off topic, but it all started with, hey, if two people love each other, who are we to stand in the way of that, all right? Tolerance and acceptance, that's how it started. And then it became, hey, you know what, you're a baker, I want you to bake my cake. I don't care about your religious beliefs. You're a baker, you bake my cake. Now it's, you don't condone gay marriages, you deserve to have your livelihood taken from you. You deserve to be canceled. That's how it snowballs. All right, it begins, oh, it's innocuous, and then it rolls into them impeding on your civil liberties. And when it comes again, it starts here. Oh, you can't say Christ is king, and then we know what's going to happen. It's going to snowball into, oh, you know what? The New Testament, where it says that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that's all anti-Semitic too. You know what? The whole New Testament is anti-Semitic. You know what? Christians are anti-Semitic, and little by little. I mean, am I wrong? What do you think? Okay, let me continue. Now, I've heard both sides of arguments when it comes to this. I saw Andrew Klavan, which was super weird, his video. I saw Jeremy Boring's tweet from the Daily Wire, and they were both asserting that, claiming Christ is king is anti-Semitic dog whistle aimed at attacking Jews, all right? Here's where I land on it, personally. Because I understand Shapiro and how the backhanded statements can come off as offensive if you're not a believer, all right? So I'm not going to say that, oh, Christ King, no, I understand Ben Shapiro's point of view. I understand anyone who claims that, oh, Candace is anti-Semitic. I understand their point of view. I think that they're, again, the trumped up charge is too far, but them being upset, I get that part, okay? And yet, as much as I do understand what he said, here's where you kind of lose a lot of respect. And this is where it's kind of sad, because I don't think I respect the Daily Wire anymore. I unsubscribed from them on YouTube. I'm not going to their page anymore because of what I'm about to show. I was completely unaware of this, right? I don't get into the Twitter battles. And what happened in November 2023 after the Hamas thing, when Candace and Ben Shapiro were beefing, these tweets that popped up, had I known back then, I would have stopped listening to Ben Shapiro a long time ago. All right, basically.
She tweeted on November 3rd, so this is about a month after the original Hamas attack on Israel. She tweeted, "No government anywhere has a right to commit genocide ever." Again, this was in November. She tweeted on November 14th, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake." She says, "No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money." She follows up to that, says, "Christ is king."
Again, if you're Ben Shapiro or you're part of his camp, I get it. It sucks. When you think that someone is passive-aggressively talking crap about you, but you can't prove it. She did in this tweet. There's no mention of Ben Shapiro or the Daily Wire. She's just posting random scriptures and talking about Christ is king. Okay, so that's a tough one, because when you assert that you are talking about me, even though the person didn't explicitly mention you, you're playing with fire there, especially when it comes to scriptures. All right, Ben Shapiro responded with this,
saying, "Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means, quit."
And that's when when I found out that he responded like that, bruh. Because basically Ben Shapiro put her faith to the test and telling her, you know what, you gotta choose between Daily Wire and God. Dude, if any corporation did that, obviously I would use wisdom and discretion. There's a scripture that says, "Do not prove yourself overly righteous. Why bring yourself to ruin?" But I would definitely lose a lot of respect for the company, even if I was still working for them, all right? Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire can kick rocks. Honestly, I lost respect for him like that. As soon as I saw this tweet, and I saw it just this morning, I lost respect for him. And it's sad, again, because I remember him from back in 2016 when he spoke out against woke culture and he had the courage to speak common sense. And it all looks, honestly, just so weak. Christianity, religion aside, as men, it just looks weak. For you to be offended, I've been offended. I watch movies and TV shows. I had to work today. It's Good Friday. Meanwhile they had Juneteenth off. I think that's kind of disrespectful. But whatever. I'm an adult. You know, I'm not gonna write an angry letter, you know, try to get my company ousted. No, you know, whatever. We're adults. I said that they should include themselves on the mug of leftist tears, but oh wait, they do. It's down at the bottom. Daily Wire. So with all this said and done, I do think it is somewhat refreshing to see so many people speak up about this through their channels, their platforms, in the comment section. It does seem that people are defiant. They refuse to let Christ as King be co-opted by supremacists and the ADL into classifying it as hate speech. Lastly, we gotta talk about whether or not people are gonna start living the way they claim, okay? If you guys have been watching my videos all this year, I've been calling out Christians, all right? If you say that Christ is King, prove it, all right? Ladies, how do you feel about submitting to your husband's authority? Fellas, how do you feel about waiting till marriage to have sex? Queens, how do you feel about homosexuality? Brothers, how do you feel about getting blazed and drunk on the weekends? How do you feel about being generous? How do you feel about loving your fellow neighbors as you do yourself? How do you feel about forgiving those who have crossed you? What's your opinion on telling little white lies? What's your opinion on telling little white lies or wanting everyone to do whatever they want as long as it makes them happy? What's your opinion on all that? All you Christians who want to declare Christ is King. Christ is King. Because if Christ is your King, obey. Read the scriptures. Live by the standard by which you declare. Because people are watching. Atheists are watching. Agnostics are watching. People who are lukewarm and they need guidance and they're looking for a home and they're looking for someone to follow. Because they do need help. They need it. You know, they're looking at this. And for the Christians who claim that Christ is King, but you still have sex outside of wedlock, you're shacking up, you're not married, you're producing all these children, or I have gay friends and I go to pride events, and I don't see anything wrong with that. Meanwhile, you know what Bible says and how God sees it as an abomination. You know, it's like, you gotta pick one. You can't say Christ is King and then live however you want. I mean, you can, technically. But you're setting a bad example, and the people who don't believe you and people who want to claim that this is all anti-Semitic and you're just using the slogan to attack, they have some grounds to stand on the argument because if Christ is King and you're not living by that standard, I mean, it's so obvious. You know, you are using it to attack, but you don't live by the standard. So that's what I want to end with. You know, like, I'm not calling anyone out. There's no one that I have in mind as I speak these things. But if you call yourself a Christian, if you claim that Christ is King, you got to start obeying, all right? Christ said that whoever wants to follow him should deny himself and take up their cross. So if you're a Christian, do you still think it's a good idea to pedestalize money, fame, glory, and sex? All right? Seek first the kingdom of heaven and all things be added unto you. That's Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. All right? If Christ is your King, prove it.